go. Hey, it's Del Jackson, LLhoops. It's been a while, but we have a special guest tonight. We got Coach Jeffwilson from East Stroudsburg University, a Division II school. Got some ties to the LL. We're going to talk about that with his background. Got some recruiting ties in our area. And I thought it would be really good, Coach, for us to talk about recruiting, what you look for and all that. But we're going to start with your background. I think you're going to surprise some people with your high school background here. But go ahead. We'll turn it over to you.
Well, it actually wasn't the Lancaster-Lebanon League at that point. It was the Chestmont League and Southern Chester County League when I played. So Southern Chester County League's not even there anymore. So that shows you how old I'm getting. But I went to Octorara High School. And I had a great experience there, which is kind of what catapulted me into coaching, to be very honest with you. My two high school coaches, Gary Wetzel, the varsity coach, and Ray Westner, my JV coach. Ray was a guy that I really identified with early on in my career. He really pushed me. At one point, I kind of really thought I was going to be a health and phys ed teacher, just like he was, and a high school basketball coach. I went to East Stroudsburg University to be a health and physical education teacher. And you know, I had some other mentors along the way once I got to East Stroudsburg that said, hey, why don't you give college coaching a try? So I went the graduate assistant route and latched on to a guy named Sal Mentasana, who I was with for 15 years. And, you know, Sal did a great job of teaching me all of his philosophy and the way we play that I know you're going to get into a little bit later with the running and pressing style. A lot of that philosophy comes from Sal. And, you know, even some of the terminology that I use, you know, 30 years later, that came from him and his early impact on me as a coach.
Yeah, you always borrow what's good. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's the way it is. Hey, I had a player that played for me that went up there, Scott Lyons. I don't know if you were involved when he was around up there or not.
Scott Lyons, actually, he came up there as our graduate assistant. I was with Sal at the time. Scott lived with me. You know, he was a really hard worker and a really good guy. And, you know, he brought a lot to the table for the program.
Yeah, it's a small world. I mean, it's kind of crazy. And I'm sure that you have so many connections all over the country because you've coached where you're at. And you've had different experiences and people move on and you have some, you know, you have some great contacts, I think. Let's talk about your team at East Stroud. I have to be honest with everybody. I've seen your team play a couple times, not recently, but we have some ties, you know, I'm hanging out with your brother and that's cool. But I tell you what impressed me, I don't know, I think I saw you at Shippensburg a long time, a couple years ago, but what impresses me about your team is when when a guy comes off the bench, everybody gets up and I don't know if he can high five anymore, but you know, the towel's going and he walks all the way down to the bench and everybody touches everybody. And I know that's coaching. So that's part of your philosophy. So give us a little bit of flavor about what you guys do as a whole picture. And then maybe we can get into where you're at right now.
Okay. So from the whole picture, I mean, there's a lot of things there you could dive into. The way our playing philosophy I should talk about first is, you know, we run and press. So we play a little bit differently than probably a lot of teams in the country. And there's a lot of ways to win. But, you know, again, going back to Sal's influence on me in the running and pressing, that's what we did when I was a GA and then as an assistant coach with him at both East Stroudsburg. And I was the associate head coach at Lehigh with him as well for 6 years. But that style kind of took place, and you know we press three different ways depending on if it's a made basket, free throw, dead ball. I even have a concept of pressing on misses, which would really speed the game up. And with that is, you know, it's tying it all together. It's also running and being aggressive at the offensive end, while also not trying to sacrifice your execution. So there's a lot of moving parts there, and you know. Sometimes I think the concept or the perception of people, I should say, is that a running pressing style is maybe an undisciplined style. And one thing that I've always believed, and you know, I'll believe it all the way through, and I think it's helped us win games, to be very honest with you, is that in a running pressing style, I think you have to make more decisions. I think you have to be more disciplined, because you have to know when to go for a trap and how to close a trap. You can't, foul recklessly. Obviously, you're just stopping the clock there and getting people into foul trouble if you're doing that. And you have to be able to have guys. We play 10 guys a night, and some of that discipline is, guys being able to put themselves in a situation where they're part of something that's bigger than themselves, right? And I think, you made the point about coming to see us play, and, guys are up, they're happy for their teammates when they're coming off the floor, or they're trying to pick them up if they maybe didn't have a good rotation. They're engaged into the game because I may call them at any time to go in. And we try to breed that in the way we practice, and the way we play. But, we very openly talk to our guys, whether it's in the recruiting process or when they're there. If you're playing as hard as you can for 3.5 to 4.5 minutes, somewhere in that rotation, if you're playing that hard, you're going to need a break, right? And we try to reward the guys that really buy into that. If they're into their rotation and they're having a really good rotation, instead of just trying to stay on the floor and maybe give up something at either end of the floor, we talk to guys about, give us a fist. And if you give us a fist and we bring you out before we would deem your rotation over, then when you come out, you basically tell me when you're going to go back in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's really bred some responsibility in guys of, we're going to play as hard as we can. We're going to sacrifice. Now, if I make a substitution based on bad effort or, maybe not a good rotation or fouls, that's a different thing. But if the kid gives me a fist and we can get him out of the game, let him recover pretty quickly, we're going to get him back in, and his rotation will then start again. And that's really, I think with our guys, one thing that I really tried to concentrate a lot on, whether it's game preparation, practice preparation, or in recruiting, is to get guys that really fit the program. Not just the best talent. The best talent doesn't always win. It's guys that can really go outside of themselves, picture what it is to be a good player in our program, what's going to make you successful, and then go out and be able to execute it with, another 14 guys on the team. Mm-hmm. In college basketball, to be very honest with you, kind of lends itself to that anyway. If you have a roster of 15, and some people don't even keep 15 anymore because keeping guys happy is maybe a little bit harder than it used to be. Mm-hmm. But, if you're recruited to a program and you have, whether it's 12 or 15, whatever it is, that means there's some other pretty good players in the program. Mm-hmm. And, we are going out, we're trying to find the best talent that we can, and guys that fit the style, complement each other, have good chemistry and those type of things. And that's a challenge into itself. But, if you can find those guys that just want to get better and are self-starters and really want to come in and try to make themselves better players, you're going to have some success.
What about, as we're talking, I always think coaching stuff. So I know you play a lot of guys. Do you mass substitute or substitute one or two at a time?
Sometimes it depends on the year. Last year we got into a thing. I never start the year thinking it's going to be mass substitution, right? It's kind of when guys fatigue. Some of it's chemistry. There have been times that, and you have to have the right guy for this. There may be a guy that is better coming off the bench than he would be as a starter. What I've learned over my time is that everybody wants to start, right? But there have been guys, and I had guys last year that actually looked at it and said, I'm better coming off the bench. I can get to see the game for 2 or 3 minutes. I know my minutes are going to be about the same no matter what it is. So from a chemistry standpoint, if that helps, then I'll come off the bench. Last year we had that situation. We were a pretty young team. I couldn't come off the bench with all freshmen. So I had a couple of upperclassmen that actually were fine with coming off the bench, and they played better in scrimmages and they saw the worth in it. And as our year went on, what I found was I had more confidence maybe as a unit to unit. Mm-hmm. And we almost did substitute mass. We almost sometimes were 5 at a time. almost like the old Carolina blue
Yeah,
teams.
blue teams, yeah.
We didn't take it to that point, but there were a lot of times it would be 3 or 4 guys, and sometimes going into a game, to be very honest with you, 3.5 minutes in, 5 guys were sitting at the table trying to get into the game.
Yeah, depending on the whistle and things like that. All right, so again, from a coach's point of view, I'm looking at it. You're playing a lot of guys. That's got to help you with one year to the next, to the next, to the next. I know sometimes at the D1 level, I mean, we watch TV all the time. It's like, I know Duke's going to have a different starting 5. You just don't know from one year to the next. But I think with your guys, if you can keep them healthy, you probably have pretty good continuity. A kid's playing as a freshman and he gets all the way up to the senior. He kind of knows the routine, and then the other guys kind of feed into that. Does that help your leadership on with your kids from one year to the next, as they know kind of how you're going to do things?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's a great point. I think it helps in a lot of different aspects. Number one, to use last year as an example, again, I had 3 seniors that graduated. Obviously, they were all in the top 10 of my rotation. Sometimes last year I played 11. I really liked our depth as the year went on, and we were able to play an 11th guy sometimes. So if you look at that, you take 3 guys off of last year's team, well, we have 8 guys coming back. So you always have a good nucleus of guys coming back. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that guys don't elevate their games. If you're a backup and you're playing, let's say, 13, 14, 15 minutes a game, and you're trying to get to 25, well, you have to take a jump in your skill level and your physical conditioning and all those type of things. But at least you have somebody that's played,
yes,
that knows the style, that knows the system. They've been through it. They've been through the PSAC. The Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, in my opinion, and this kind of bears itself out, is typically regarded as one of the top 5 Division II conferences in the country. We have really good teams. Every night's a war, on both sides of the conference. And, so it's great to have guys that get to know what that expectation is. And when you're able to bring a lot of guys back, obviously at our level, we don't have the Dukes where we're the one and done and they're going to the NBA.
Right.
Now sometimes, at the Division II level, guys, want to try to play higher.
Yep.
Our conference has had a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't really had a lot. I had one kid that wanted to try to do that 3 or 4 years ago and did, but other than that, he's a rarity.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to develop that chemistry with our team so that when we do get a nucleus that can play together, you're just adding a couple pieces year to year. You're not overhauling the entire thing. And that's really been important for us. Especially, again, I talked a little bit earlier to start about there's a lot of different ways to win. But when you're trying to teach guys how to press and how to play that style, it's great to have guys that can show the other guys how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's been really important for us, and it's really paid off some big benefits.
All right, let's switch gears just a little bit. Let's talk about, let's say you come into our gym and you're recruiting one of my players. So what do you do when you come in? Obviously, you have the kid. You might have contacted him. You're in a gym. What are you looking for? How does that work on your end as far as recruiting in person when a player's playing that night?
Well, I would say probably 80 to 90% of the cases, before we even get to that point, we're going to find out where they're at academically. We want to make sure that we have guys that are qualified and capable, right? We want to make sure that, we're not just bringing guys in for 1 year and they're not capable of doing the work, or they're going to be academically ineligible. So we're going to do our due diligence in again, 80 to 90% of the cases, unless it's maybe somebody very late in the year that we get on that we really need to see quickly before the end of the season. But the first thing we try to do is we try to get transcripts. We try to, if at all possible, we try to watch film before we go watch anybody. So that we have a baseline, right? Not just chasing ourselves and that type of thing. So the first thing we're going to do is academically make sure that they're qualified and capable. As getting involved with a player, we still try to check off all the boxes on who we're looking at, right? You know, in today's day and age of AAU basketball, you know, some coaches are very comfortable maybe just recruiting the AAU coaches. You know, we want to make sure that we're getting to know that player through everybody's eyes, right? So as a high school coach, you know, we want to make sure that we're going through that coach because they obviously spend a ton of time with that kid all the way through their high school years. If they play for an AAU program, we're going to touch base with that coach. We're going to get their opinion of them. We may get different films of different venues, right? AAU sometimes is very different than a high school situation. And we're going to try to do our homework there. But at the same time, we're going to, you know, take all those things into account. Now, when we get into your gym, after that process is already down the road a little bit, we try to touch base even with as many people at the school as possible. You know, if we're at a game, you know, I like to sit near the student section because students are very honest in their appraisal. And you'll find out if a kid's liked or if he's not liked, right? And a lot of times, if he's not liked in high school, he might not be liked by his high school or his college teammates or that type of thing when they get there, right? So the other thing is, you know, looking at that, we want to find out that goes to the fit. Is he going to be a fit for our program when he gets there? And then for us, obviously, there's a lot of things that come into play, you know, their ability to play the running pressing style. You know, obviously, they're going to have some athleticism. For big guys, they need to be able to run the floor. Some big guys really don't run the floor very well, and they really can't press, right? So that wouldn't be a good match. You want as skilled a level of player as you can find. Right. You know, at whatever the position is, whether it's the guard spot, and can they fit into your philosophy, how you want to play offensively. And then the two things that are very intangible that you can see by watching a kid play are their mentality to play the style. You know, what is their mentality? How hard are they going to go? What's their motor like? Is he a guy that every day in practice I'm going to have to get on, or is he pretty self-driven and he wants to be the best player that he can be? You know, all those type of things kind of go into effect on what you're looking for. And if you find those type of guys, right, more often than not, you're going to find a pretty good teammate. And we're looking for guys to be good teammates and good representatives of the program. Yeah.
How difficult was it to recruit one Ryan Smith of LS?
He wasn't very hard to recruit. You know, he was a guy that, to be very honest with you, when I first started recruiting him, it didn't take me too long to really put an offer on the table. I thought he was a guy that, you know, was tailor-made for the system in a lot of ways. Some people probably question that. You know, I know as he was growing into his body, some people questioned whether he was a guy that could press. And I didn't see that at all being a negative because of his temperament. He's one of the most self-driven and self-motivated kids I've ever seen. And he just wants to be a player, you know, and you know, very early on in our relationship when he came to East Stroudsburg, he got into a great routine where he would come into the office and, you know, on a Monday, he would watch all of his possessions against the team we played on Saturday. And then on Tuesday, he would come into the office and watch the guy that he's going to play on Wednesday. Right. And that was in addition to all the other film that we watched as a team and all the workouts and those type of things. But most freshmen, you have to really teach that to. As soon as he saw the benefit of it the first time, he was initiating the conversation. Hey, coach, can I come in and watch film at noon? I got a break in my schedule. When you got guys like that, you have a chance to be successful.
Well, you know, I think we got a special guest waiting here. I see his face, but I don't hear him. So if he can unmute himself, maybe we can ask him some questions too. Maybe you and I can both double team him. What do you think?
How's it going?
Smith, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. Hey, every once in a while I get a picture of you holding this big bass up at the ponds in the north county of Bradford County. How about that? How are you doing, big guy? Seriously.
I'm doing really well. I finally got the big like a big step that I just took was like getting my PICC line out, which is some of the places where I get medicine. So I have that out now, and I don't have many restrictions. So I'm just trying to work and get stronger.
Nice.
Just kind of get back to my body I had last summer and grow on that too.
Okay, so now, hey, right now you're a media star. Like you're part of LLhoops. So here's what I'm going to do to you. I'm going to ask you to ask Coach some questions. How about that? You can ask him anything you want. It's like, hey, Coach, why do you do this? Or what's your practice schedule like? And, you know, what the heck went on here? Go ahead. You're the man.
Oh, man.
I mean, you didn't think we were going to come on here and talk with you. We got to talk to Coach. You know what I'm saying? You're the star. You're the media guy.
All right, Coach Will. What's your plan of action going into this season, considering that it's different from any other season you had before?
I like it.
Well, that's a loaded question because I really don't know what the season's going to hold. You know.
I'll word it different. How do you prepare guys for a season that potentially may not even happen?
Oh, that's a good one.
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is work on their mentality, right? And control what you can control. And that's what I've tried to talk about with all the guys up there. We do have 10, 11 guys up there right now, veterans, no freshmen are up at school. But the veterans are up there for the most part, or have the ability to get there and work out. Our university is going to allow us, starting on next week, to start with strength and conditioning. Everybody had to get tested. Everybody had to go through the protocol for COVID. And at this point, everything is full go. They're going to have to go with their strength and conditioning coach for 2 weeks. And then at that point, if we get through all that and everybody stays healthy, which is the major concern, then at that point, then coaches can get involved and hopefully we can start practicing. But there's so many layers to what the year could look like. First thing I'm telling guys is make sure your academics don't slip, right? Don't put yourself in a situation where you relax because things are online and now all of a sudden you get yourself ineligible or something like that. Control what you can control, right? The NCAA or the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, they're going to be the ones that make the decision on if we're playing, what our schedule looks like. If you look at the fall sports right now, everybody's going to get a year back because they're playing less than 50% of their maximum games. We could be in that. Right now, we're not. They're saying that we are going to have a championship season. So let's concentrate on that. When we get to the ability to practice, let's make sure we're in the best shape that we're in. Let's take everybody's game a little bit further. If we get the opportunity to play, which we're all hoping that we do, then we'll be ahead of where a lot of people are, and it could give us an advantage. If we're not, for whatever reason, and we don't have the ability to play this year, everybody gets a year back. This entire team will be back. There's a kid named Ryan Smith that will be back. So all those things are positive for the program, and all we have to do is take care of business.
Let me go back to ask Ryan a question. I know he's the media star. He can think about another question, but I mean, it's pretty obvious talking to Coach Wilson here. He's a pretty upfront guy. So what was maybe one of the bigger selling points to you to go to East Stroudsburg? Because I know you had a lot of offers on the table, especially as your senior season progressed.
I think it was just like I think part of that is being like the upfront. Like I don't want someone who's going to tell me something that's actually not true, like just kind of beating around the bush. Like I would rather be just told up front, like, this is what you need to work on. This is how you're going to improve, and not take those as criticisms, but like take them as like a teaching point from a coaching perspective, because Coach Will has plenty of years of experience. So I think just learning from those things, like in him being a straight up guy, really helps me in my development as an athlete and as someone in the classroom.
Nice. Okay, let me ask you another question. Then you can go back to Coach Wilson and ask him something. What I want to know for our LLhoops guys, I mean, we've been around for a while. What is the biggest difference between being a really good high school player and going to a Division II school?
I think it takes a lot more dedication than people think. In high school, you can get away with not working out over the summers and just playing in your season, but in college, it's more like a full-time job. You're if you really want to be a good player, you got to go in for film, you got to study your players, and you got to take a hold of the stuff you do on the court as well. And that's not just during the season. I think working on during the off season with and without coaches is a big thing too.
Nice. I'm gonna go to Coach Wilson, and I'm gonna have you ask him another question. So you got a little bit of time to think. I know I put you on the spot the last time. Hey, Coach,
Okay.
You talked about kids staying eligible. How often do you have a check on their grades? Can you guys look at their grades, or the kids have to turn them into you? How does that work as far as I know in the high school level now? Coaches pretty much can get the kids' grades anytime with a click of a mouse. But how do you do it at the D2 level?
Yeah, we try to put as many checks and balances in play as we can. Each player will have an academic coach on my staff that they'll meet with once or twice a week, and they'll go through and they'll find out what kids' grades are. We'll actually go and look at their syllabus and find out, when tests are coming up, and try to put them on some time management if needed. We'll have study hall for anybody that we would deem that at risk. East Stroudsburg University has a situation where, they have a tutoring program for anybody that needs a tutor, wants a tutor, they can have one free of charge. So anybody that looks like they're going to have trouble in grades, we try to get them into tutoring as quickly as possible. But all those layers, and having the ability to talk to guys once or twice a week, and really find out where they're at academically, and get them into the office, and keep every grade, every quiz, whatever it may be, and know where they're at. It allows us to really coach them through that, for lack of better terminology. I actually talked to Ryan about his today, and he's not a guy that has a whole lot of trouble with his grades, but we had a conversation today about the 5 classes that he has right now this semester, and what he's doing in those, and does he see any pitfalls and those type of things, and just so he doesn't slip. I mean, Ryan is a really, really bright kid, and he has maybe 1 B in his college career at this point. So, he has a lot to be proud of academically as well as basketball wise. But we want to make sure that nobody slips, and really what we tell everybody, and sometimes I think guys wonder why I harp on this as much as I do, but I talk to everybody about, you want your GPA to be a 3.0 or better, because at 3.0 or better, you're not going to close many doors. If you decide you want to go to graduate school with a 3.0, you have a chance to get in. If you are a mediocre student and don't work at it, and you settle for a 2.5, and you decide you want to go to graduate school, you're probably not getting in, right? So we're trying to coach them to be a 3.0 or better, so that they're not closing any doors for themselves academically.
Nice. Okay, Ryan, I gave you some time to think. Go back at Coach. What do you got?
This is a question I was wondering, and a lot of people in high school ask me this too, just because I'm at the college level. But like since like COVID's happening and coaches can't see kids as much when recruiting, what are some like core values that you look for in someone that you're recruiting?
Well, we talked a little bit about this before you got on, but I'll reiterate it. I mean,
well, let's just follow that up, Coach. I mean, we hit it, but I think he's hitting like, okay, how do you do the Zoom thing? How do you recruit kids that you can't get on campus, as well as your core values?
Well, that's an interesting question for us this year, right? And I'll be very honest with you, where we're at from a recruiting standpoint is, we have 1 senior in our program. And he's actually going to take a missed term this year to preserve his eligibility and go through that. And we have Ryan coming back. So really, we're trying to be involved with a lot of guys in case we need to be, and really look at guys that would fit our program. But the COVID situation is so unique. goes back to Ryan's first question. Let's say we're in the same situation we are as in the fall sports, and we are in a situation where we're playing 50% of our games or less, and everybody gets a year of eligibility back. Well, the first thing I would have to find out is who's coming back, who's going to take advantage of that.
Right.
And, if that's somebody that's a junior or sophomore, they may be back for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So early on in this process, until we really find out what the Division II schedule is going to look like, the championships, we're going to be involved with as many guys as we always are. We're going to evaluate them. We're not allowed off campus, so we're going to look at that film. As I talked to you about earlier, Dell, we're going to talk to the high school coach. We're going to talk to the AAU coaches. We're going to talk to the guidance counselors. We're going to find out what kind of kid they are. We're going to try to dot as many I's and cross as many T's as we can. But then when you start looking into the core values, we're looking for great teammates. We're looking for high character guys. We're looking for hopefully guys that are self-starters that are going to make themselves better players. Because you know how it is if it's always coming from the coach and it's day in, day out, of trying to motivate a guy, at some point there's going to be a wall there, right? So you need guys that really want to be good players, and they have to see the need for that, and they have to want to do it for themselves and also for the program.
Yeah. All right. Let me switch back to Ryan here real quick. He's getting dark on us out there. It looks like it's getting dark, so I'll hit him up one more time. Hey, Ryan, how's it going? Coach talking about your classes. How's it going with your condition? What's your goal for this year for school and for basketball in the future?
For right now, me and Coach Will just kind of had a few short-term goals before their practices can even start. So he gave me the date of October 15th, and we set a few goals where more in my body development, where he set a goal to try to be 215 by October 15th, as well as along with getting 1+ reps of 185 on the bench. Also being able to do some virtual workouts with the coaches, working on post footwork again, just kind of getting back into it, along with maybe starting a little bit of conditioning with walking and jogging on the track. So that's what I'm really focusing on, basketball and just strength-wise. And along with the classroom, I'm not too worried about that, but I'm just really glad to be back into a regular schedule. Since I got diagnosed and to now, I mean, I haven't used my brain too much. So I'm just glad to be back to being able to learn and kind of just motivating myself to do more. So yeah.
Are you on campus or are you here?
I'm at home.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm just doing Zoom classes every day,
okay.
Along with workouts. Okay. So yeah.
All right. Is there a time frame where you think you'll be back up at campus, or it depends on what coach does with all the team and all that stuff?
Most likely I'll be able to go up the start of next semester. So I'm shooting for January to be back up in East Stroudsburg.
Awesome. Hey, Coach, we're gonna finish up with this. It's like you have a ton of wins, 300 plus. You've coached D1, you've coached a D2. What drives you? That's an Andy question. It's like, okay, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. It's like, what is the driver for you at this point in time? What motivates you at this point?
No, I think it's been the same thing it has all along. I'm a guy that likes to compete, and this gives me the opportunity to compete. And, whether it's competing for a recruit or recruiting, competing to schedule or get a team ready for a game, to find a donor for, an extra scholarship for a kid, whatever it may be. I really look at that as an opportunity to compete. And that really gets to me, and when we have one word for our program that we talk about all the time. And, that word is relentless. And, when Ryan got sick last year, we try to preach relentless all the time. You know, whether you're in the classroom, be relentless to be over that 3.0, right? If you're trying to be the best player you can be relentless in your preparation. So we try to talk about that a lot. We have it all over the place, so guys see it a lot. But you kind of know that it's something that takes hold when you look at Ryan and his situation last year, and the bands that we sold to try to help Ryan and his family out. Ryan came up with "Relentless" as his slogan. So he took it from the program, I think. We never really talked about that, but I think that's what happened. And, you know,
we can ask him if you want, and we can ask him if you want.
He kind of took that to his journey, you know.
I took it from the program.
There you go, Coach.
and that's the way he's approached it, you know, to be very honest with you. And then, you know, when you look at it and you look at what he's done, first of all, when he says we set goals, he's the guy that set the goals, right? I approved what the goals were, and I gave him maybe a little tweak here and there, but he's self-driven, you know, and he's motivated, and he has that it factor, you know, and that's what makes him not only a good student but a good person and a very good player. So you know, all the credit there for him.
Awesome. Hey, we're going to wrap up here. I thank you, Coach Wilson. I thank our guest, Brian Smith. Good luck to both of you guys. I think everybody should come see one of your games. It's different from what we're used to. It really is, Coach. And I enjoy watching your kids play because they seem to be on the same page. And there's a lot of it that some people will watch, but I know there's a lot of coaching that goes on. Hey, one other thing that hit my little pea-brain head while you were saying you were competitive. You still lace up the sneakers?
No.
So you're smart and competitive too.
When I was about 45 years old, that was the last time we did it. There was a bunch of older guys here in the Lehigh Valley. Everybody was a college player. And we had 2 torn Achilles and a blown out knee. And I looked at that, and I wasn't one of them. And I said, that's not going to be me. So that was it.
That's great. Hey, good luck to both of you. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll post this up soon. We appreciate everything, and good luck to both you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you around.